Hello and welcome to Talking About Success. I'm Jack Canfield, America's #1 success coach, chairman of the Canfield Training Group, and the author of numerous New York Times bestsellers, including The Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and most recently, The Success Principles, How to Get from Where You Are to Where You Want to Be. And today I want to introduce you to my guest, Ayo Olaseinde. Now, he is an amazing self-made entrepreneur, the current president of a global company that is turning over hundreds of millions of dollars each year, and who's passionate about driving change and success across the organization. But the early part of his life was very different for Ayo. He was born in the UK to a Nigerian father and a white German mother, and then was taken back by them to Nigeria when he was just six weeks old. And he found living in Nigeria difficult. He was bullied because he was the only what they called white black kid in class. He was also the one with ADD and found the classic education model to be very, very difficult. But at 18, he left for the UK in search of a better life, and he found himself doing whatever it took to succeed, even sleeping on the sofa of a family friend. After years of struggle, Ayo finally found that he was good at sales, and the rest, they say, is history. We're going to talk about that. Welcome to the show, Ayo.
Thank you, Jack. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, we learned a little bit about you in the introduction, but tell us a little more about your background and what got you from there to here.
Well, as you explained, I was brought up in Nigeria. I had ADD, so when I was a kid growing up, I just remembered I'd read a page and I get to the bottom of the page and I can't remember what was at the top. Mm-hmm. So as a result, I failed everything in school. I was last in class. And it was not fun. And the Nigerian upbringing at the time was, if you failed, I used to give my dad my school report and the cane, because you got the cane for failing. So you had to deal with that and everything. And then when I was 18, I came over to England, thinking this was going to save me, and things actually got worse. To my lowest point, where I ended up sleeping on a French chair because I had nowhere to live. I had nothing. And so it was just a journey of challenges. And when you are in it, there's something about going through tough times is, if you're brought up in tough times and you live in tough times, you actually don't know any different. So you just get on with it. And that's what I did.
Well, you're considered one of the top salespeople in the world. And let's talk about what motivated you, or what was the turning point that got you into sales?
Well, the sales for me, one of the things that, the first book I wrote is Have You Got the Why Factor? And the reason I wrote that book, WHY, the Why Factor, is I found out that when you have a big enough why, you figure out how. And I had a big why. So I'm not a salesperson. I'm a quiet, shy person. I'm an introvert. I was bullied. I had no confidence. Zero confidence. So I had none of these things going against me. But me and my brother, our goal was to come to England and try and make it to get enough money to go back and save my mom, who had had a very hard life in Nigeria because she had been disowned by her family because she had married a black person and she stayed there for the kids. So I had to come out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. And that was it, really. That was what spurred me on to try something different. And I didn't have any options, Jack, because there's no education. I'm not an athlete. I got no sports. So it was, and in the papers at the time, the best paid jobs were sales jobs. And I remember saying to myself, I can't sell. I'm not a salesperson. But I learned a really valuable lesson. And the lesson was, if you find a product you believe in, and you speak from your heart, that's not sales. That's just you speaking.
You're sharing from your heart.
Sharing from your heart. In fact, I say the only time you have to sell is when you don't believe in your product.
I never heard that before, but I like it. Yeah. One of my friends says it's not about hard sell, it's about heart sell. You're speaking from your heart. That's really good. So as you know, well, let's talk about that. Let's back up a little bit. So here you are, you get this job, it's called sales. You find a product you really liked. And then what was that like for you? Like, what was the realization, or how did that develop in the first couple of years? You go, okay, this isn't what I thought it was, but I'm really liking it. I mean, what was that like?
Well, if I back up a little bit before that.
Sure.
So when I was sleeping on the friend's couch, I need to get a job. So I used to walk 4 miles to a bakery and stand outside and hopefully get a night's work. And it took me about 2 weeks of walking there. They said, no, walk home, go back the following day. And eventually they set me on. I started getting some casual laboring work. And then I got to the point where I was making a little bit of money, so I'd take the bus halfway and I'd walk the other half because that saved myself 24p, English 24 pence then. That meant I could buy myself dinner. So this one day, Jack, I'm walking to the bakery. I'm feeling sorry for myself. I have holes in my shoes. Life is not good. I'm feeling cold. My socks are soaking wet. You know, all I can hear is squish, squish as I'm walking down the road. And I remember this silver Mercedes drives past, husband and wife, kids playing in the background. I remember looking at the Mercedes and looking at myself and going, what happened? Why am I in this situation? And the point I just wanted to leverage was later on that day in the canteen, I was thinking, what am I going to do? And I had no options. And we were queuing for dinner, and there was a 50-year-old and a 60-year-old in front of me. And the 50-year-old said to the 60-year-old, he says, well, when are you going to retire? And I was listening to this conversation, and the 60-year-old said, well, I can't retire because I haven't got enough money. And I just remember saying, if I stay in this factory, that's going to be my story. I was 24 years old, and that's when I decided I have to get out. So I started looking in the paper, and I thought if I could find the right product. I saw a great product at the time. I got in, and I just worked because I'd failed for so long, for so many years. Failure never bothered me. Rejection didn't bother me because I've been rejected all my life. So I just kept working. But I actually didn't expect to get any results because I didn't think I deserved the results. So it was a hard slog in the beginning, just working.
But you did get results.
You did eventually, because whatever you practice, eventually you get good at it.
Yeah.
And then as I began to get some results, my confidence goes up a little bit. So I got a few more results. And then, as you know, in sales, they have a lot of incentives. And I mean, I had nothing. So as soon as they put an incentive, I go, I'm winning that. And I learned how to become a winner. And gradually I worked my way through the ranks.
Mm-hmm. You told a story before we came on air about a man and his daughter driving through a car in a storm. And I'm thinking of you walking in your shoes, sloshing through the storm.
Yeah.
And would you share that story with our viewers?
Yeah, so it's a story about a daughter driving a father home one day, and there's a big heavy storm. And the storm's really terrible, so she slows down. She's probably doing about 5-10 miles an hour. Cars are pulling over, and she says, Dad, I'm going to pull over. And the dad says, don't pull over, keep driving. And she says, but Dad, it's so heavy. And she said, let me just pull over. He says, no, don't. Whatever you do, don't stop. Keep driving. So she kept driving, and eventually they drove out of the storm. When they got out of the storm, the father said to her, he says, I want you to pull over. She says, you want me to pull over now? When I was in the storm, you didn't let me pull over? He says, no, I want to teach you a life lesson. And so she pulled over, she got out of the car, and he said to her, when you look back at the storm, I want you to see, what can you see? He said, well, obviously I can see the storm. He said, but look closely. He says, what can you see? And she says, I can see the cars that pulled over. And he says, you see, the lesson in life is when there is a storm, you never pull over. Because if you pull over, you still be in the storm. There's only one way to get out of the storm, and that's to keep driving. And I've learned to use that whatever the situation is, you never give up, you keep working, you keep driving, you keep pushing on, because eventually you will get out of it.
Mm-hmm. So I love that story. It's a great story. And you exemplified it with your life. I love it. So you've followed your dreams. And most people, I think, don't. Most people keep working in that factory, keep doing that thing they don't want to do. They're not happy. I love the quote, when your vocation feels like a vacation, you've made it, and you have that life. Did you always have that drive to just fulfill that dream? I mean, here you are walking to the bakery. I mean, you what propelled you? And do you think other people, what would you say to other people who maybe don't do that?
It's a great question because I really didn't have those big dreams. Mm-hmm. My initial dream was survival.
Survival.
That was survival. And when I looked at that life in that factory, I just went, I knew what I didn't want. I knew what I would like to have, but I didn't believe I could have it because I didn't feel valuable enough and believe in myself. So those dreams began to change. And I used the analogy of when you climb a mountain, the further up the mountain you go, the further you can see. So as I got a little bit more success, my dreams began to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that's how I did. So I always say to people, I think in this society today, everybody just wants instant success. I want to do something and get it all done today. And I said, it doesn't work like that. You're going to have to slug. It's going to take some time. But you do need to learn how to do, and I know you do a lot of great training programs, but I taught people about goal setting. It's just amazing how so many people just don't have any goals. I mean, the basic goals is to go to the cinema and the pictures on the weekend and go for dinner and have a great Christmas. People spend more time planning Christmas than they do their life.
It's true. So true. Now, you talked about climbing a mountain. The higher you go, the more you can see. Was there a point in your climbing that proverbial or metaphorical mountain where you went, oh, I can be really successful. This could happen for me?
Oh, absolutely. So I started and, like I say, began to get a little bit of success. And then I got to the point where I opened up my own outlet, my own branch. And then I got some more success. And I got to a point where now I believed in myself. Now I knew my potential was unlimited. And I was a great student. And at that time, so I just changed my thinking. And when I say change my thinking, I just started thinking bigger and setting really high goals. This is what I learned. It doesn't cost you anything to think big. In fact, thinking big is free. Thinking small is expensive.
That's a good line. Thinking big is free. Thinking small is expensive.
Because when you think small, you're never going to challenge yourself. You're never going to bring the greatness out of you. You're never going to achieve anything. You're just going to look at everything and just say, you know what, don't try. But when you start thinking big, you start thinking differently. How am I going to do this? And you start figuring it out. So I started thinking big.
As you were climbing your mountain, were there any books or teachers that you discovered or ran into or along the way that helped propel you?
Helped propel me? Yeah, I was handed a set of tapes from Brian Tracy by my mentor, Mr. Gene Winfield, and that really just helped me put into boxes things I was already doing, but I wasn't aware I was doing. Anthony Robbins, Les Brown. So it was that group of people at that time.
Good. Yeah. I know for me, it's always, I always say we stand on the shoulders of the people who came before us. In some level, they're teaching us principles and tools. So do you have any daily disciplines in terms of like how you keep your positive attitude or amp yourself up for the day or anything like that?
What I've learned to protect my brain. So and one of the things I use to protect my brain is the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So what I find is when I'm in a situation, I just ask myself, can I control this? And if I can't control it, so for example, if you're in a traffic jam, can I control it? No, so I don't get upset about it. I just focus on what I can focus on. But I've just learned my discipline is about protecting the mind. You see, your mind is like a ship at sea. The only time the ship sinks is when you let water into the ship. So the only time your brain sinks and you go down is when you let all the negative stuff. And I've just learned to protect my mind. So it's hard. Doesn't matter what the situation is. I just don't let it get me down.
So let's talk about that. How do you do that? Do you just don't watch the news, or if someone says something negative, you walk away, or you say cancel and replace it with something positive? How do you do that?
So once you understand the analogy of the ship and letting the negatives in there, and you go, so if somebody says, I don't like you, so again, when I go back to when I was being bullied and I don't like you, you're hopeless, you're no good. I remember all these, I used to take it personal.
Right.
Okay. And I've learned to realize that's your opinion. That's not my opinion of me. I shouldn't let your opinion become my opinion. So I've learned to hold things at bay and control what I actually let in to myself. And if it's something that's going to take me down, and affect me. Don't get me wrong, you still get affected because you're a human being. You still get affected, but then you have to learn how to just let it go. Mm-hmm. Let it go.
So you hear it, but you don't let it stick around.
And you don't allow it to become you, because human beings are very cruel, and they say very cruel things too.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember some kids one day at the middle school here in town were talking about this, and I said, well, what do you do when people say negative things? They said, they just go like this, let it go by.
Well, we used to sing, when my kids were growing up, how did this song used to go? It says, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never break me.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was just a little thing. And I remember singing this to my kids, and I said, well, hey, how about you?
Another one I heard locally was, I'm Teflon, you're glue. It bounces off me and it sticks on you. But having something to say other than to go into agreement with it, so you're kind of prepared for it.
Yeah, and we live in a negative world. People are negative. There's so many negative things. You said, how do I avoid it? I don't watch TV. I don't watch the news. Mm-hmm. I really control who I'm around. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, if you hang, the saying, if you hang around 5 negative people, you will be number 6.
Actually, yeah. Exactly.
And in my early days when I was struggling and I was in bad neighborhoods, I remember one day going, if I don't get out of this neighborhood, I'm going to become one of these guys. Mm-hmm. And I understood I had to leave.
Yeah.
I had to just leave. I couldn't stay in that environment.
So I mentioned you've written a book called Have You Got the Why Factor? And you co-authored the book Pay It Forward with Brian Tracy. Can you tell us about writing those books?
Yeah, Have You Got the Why Factor is, obviously I'd worked my way up. I'm now in a position where I've been successful. And I thought, God, when I look at myself, who I was, nothing, no self-belief to where I am now. And what helped me get through those tough times and get through that was my why factor, which was to go and save my mom. Mm. And I talk to people about, what's your why? Your why has to be bigger than just getting married, having kids, and living out. I mean, that's okay if that's what you want. But you have a bigger why that's going to drive you, to propel you, to bring out the best in you. Mm-hmm. And one of my philosophies is life is about evolving to be the best you can be. Not like somebody else. Stop competing with everybody, but compete with you. So in that book, I talk about, has the world seen the best of you?
Like that.
Or do you have more to give? Mm-hmm. And if you have more to give, let's go give it. But to get there, you have to get your brain back into gear, because it's got all those bad habits and negatives, and you've got to. So the first part of the book is really about understanding how you are, who you are today, and then what you need to do to change to be who you want to be tomorrow.
Very good. Now you've gone and written another book.
Yeah.
Born with the Power to Win. So tell us a little bit about that book and what inspired you to write that.
Yeah. Well, that was actually the first book I wrote, but I never
published
it.
That's the first book, but you didn't publish it. So it got published later, but written earlier.
Yeah. And I was working with somebody, and I decided to do the why factor first. And basically, this was really important to me. But that book is really about, again, I did it in a story format. It's it's about Michael and his wife. They have twins. They're in a tough place. They're in debt. They're living above their means. A bit middle class. She's gone off to Spain with the kids to see her father. He's verging on being depressed. He's on his way home. He gets a bottle of wine. He goes home. He gets in. He just sits down. He sits in the couch, and he's just feeling sorry for myself. And he's in this state of going, why me? Why am I in this situation? And while he's there pondering on it, he hears this voice that says, Michael. And he looks around and he goes, is there somebody in the house? So he gets up and he checks the house. All the doors are locked. And he goes, there's nobody here. And he settles back down. And he hears the voice again, Michael. And he jumps up again the second time. And this goes on 2 or 3 times. And then he settles back down and he hears the word his name Michael, and he asked him. So he's a bit calmer now. So I've kind of been hearing this voice for over a year now. I feel like somebody's calling me, but I'm not listening. So he got the courage to just speak out and say, well, who are you? And this voice speaks back to him. It says, the question is not who am I? The question is, who are you? And he says, I'm Michael. He said, yeah, but Michael is just a name. Who are you? And then the dialogue begins to continue between them. And he walks them through a process. Then they form a little group of people that meet together, and they start discussing who they are, the fears, the uncertainties, the doubts, and eventually, to the back end of it, they do a bit of a goal-setting thing, but it's done in a story format.
I liked it, though. I like it. That's good. That's good. Yeah. So you talk about the importance of people saying, why not me? Talk about that.
Well, I've learned that when you ask yourself, the human brain is such a powerful, amazing machine. But it really functions when you ask it power questions. It comes to its full best. And when you say, why not me? It really challenges you to question, why not me? And I've learned that nobody is better than you. That people are ahead of you, but they're not better than you. We're brought up to feel that people are better than us, but they're actually not. They're just ahead of you. I'm not better than anybody else. I'm ahead of you. If you've done what you've done, if you've been a carpenter and you've done that for 5 years or 10 years, you're ahead of me in carpentry. You've got 10 years of me. I've got 0. So I've just learned to question yourself, and by just saying, why not me? It allows me to begin to think, you know what? If I want to do it, I can really do it. I just have to make the decision, do I really want to do this? Not I can't do it. I mean, there's certain things like I'm not going to be a footballer at my age. But there's a lot of things that if you really want to do it and you put your mind to it, you can go and do it. Why not you?
You can look at that silver Mercedes going by and go, why not me? Just look at someone running a big organization like you and go, why not me? That's great.
Well, I always wanted a Mercedes, and I actually got to the point where I could afford to buy one, and I wouldn't buy one. And I thought, because it's just been such my dream and goal for so long that what am I going to do if I get this? So I bought a Volvo, I bought a BMW, I bought a Range Rover, and eventually I bought the Mercedes, and then I moved on from there. But it was a fun thing.
That's interesting. Afraid of losing your motivation.
Yeah. I was thinking like, once this goal goes, I've got nothing to replace it.
That's funny. I love it.
Yeah.
So if people want to get a hold of any of your books, with the Power to Win and so forth, where do they find them? Where do they go?
I mean, if you just type my name, just Google ayolasende.com, it's out there. You can get all the information you need. So we've got a lot of videos I've done. And I remember as I was coming through and struggling, I came across a lot of successful people that kept their successes to themselves. They didn't share it. And I always thought that if ever I made it, I would share, as much as I can. And so that's part of why I'm doing this. I want to get out as much information, document it, put it out there. It's all available on there. There's messages, videos, whatever you want. Hopefully it can make a little bit of a difference in your life.
Sure, it'll make a big difference. That's great. I always like to ask people this question. If there's a question you wished I would have asked you and I didn't, what would it be? Or if there's anything you want to say that I haven't set you up for.
I got asked the question, what is my biggest regret?
What is your biggest regret?
So it's a great question. And I thought that was a powerful, looking back on my career so far. And I thought about it, but I came to an answer pretty quick. And I said, you know what? And I talked about this earlier on. My biggest regret is I didn't think big enough. I thought big, but I really didn't think big enough. And I wish I'd thought a lot bigger sooner than I am thinking now.
Yeah. You mentioned Brian Tracy earlier, and one of his favorite words he talks about is wittets. WDIT test, I think, is like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah.
You know, and like, I think it's true. Once you realize that the power of our mind and what we visualize and affirm and believe in and go for, we can actually have. Then you go, well, why didn't I go for that if that's how it works? So that's great. Yeah. What is your overriding goal right now besides sharing all this information with people?
So what drives me? So the book is called Born with the Power to Win.
Right.
Is that I've realized that everybody is born with the power to win. Unfortunately, most people go to the grave without winning. Because they never tap into that power there is in there. And part of that power is your belief system. And your belief system, believing in you used right, I believe is a superpower. That you can achieve anything with it. Yeah. So what drives me is really inspiring people, because I know there's another Ayo out there that's having a hard time and looking for a way and maybe being written off by society. And hopefully I can open some doors and give them some tips so they can get through quicker than I did, and just share that with them. So, my mission is to inspire people to achieve the best that they can in themselves.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Helping all the Ayos that are out there, people with that potential that haven't realized it yet. Well, I really respect you for that, admire you for that, appreciate you and what you're trying to do, and give you lots of support. And I'm trusting that many, many people will watch this video and will be inspired not only by what they heard today, but also to read your book. So thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Yeah, and it's for me, it's important to share, and I just think it's just great. And one of the sayings I do have every day when I wake up is another day in paradise. Every day is another day in paradise. That's the way I look at it. I've just got another day in paradise.
Yeah. That's
some people, I have people say, well, and I finish it. They say they pray to God. They wish they had no problems, and I said, well, the only time I don't know anybody who doesn't have problems. It doesn't matter how successful you are. You always have problems. So the only people without problems are dead.
Right.
Yeah. So I have this conversation with the good Lord. I'm a Christian. I says to God, I says, those people say they don't want problems. You take them. I'm good. You just keep shoving the problems at me. I'm at the back of the queue.
That's great. That's great.
You can take them.
I don't know if you ever had to have an operation and they anesthetize you. I did once. And I remember waking up in the recovery room, and just going, yes, I'm still here. Yeah, you always wonder if you're going to make it through,
If you start at that point, every morning I wake up and I start with the thank you, Lord, for another day in paradise.
Yeah.
And then everything is, to me, doesn't matter what comes at you. But some people go to bed, and before they go to bed, they go, let me just see what the weather is going to be like tomorrow. And they go, oh, no, it's going to rain. And they put themselves into a negative frame.
Before they even go to sleep.
They even go to sleep. And then they wake up, and the first thing they check is it raining? And they go, oh, God, it's got to. And it doesn't matter. For me, it doesn't matter what it is. Every day is a beautiful day.
That's good. That's true, though.
Yeah.
All your attitude.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you watching today. I really appreciate you tuning in, and make sure to tune in again next week when I'll be talking with another powerful thought leader who will help you create a happier, more successful, more fulfilling life. Discover your inner potential, as we talked about today. Until then, remember, the only things that truly change your life are the books you read, the people you meet, and the actions and decisions you take. So make sure you're taking that. And when you wake up, again, say, hey, another day in paradise. I'm looking forward to it. All right, see you soon. Thank you for watching this episode of Talking About Success. Remember, your success is a journey. So for more information and free resources to help you, be sure to visit jackcanfield.com/learn more.